In this video, I'm going to show you how to put a Raspberry Pi into a case. And so there are different cases you can get for the Raspberry Pi. This is a very simple one. I'm working with the Raspberry Pi 4 today, and it's important that you get the case that goes with the particular model of Raspberry Pi because between models, sometimes the sockets in the input-output jacks change and the form factor changes slightly. So the 4 is different from the 3. I believe the 5 is slightly different from the 4. But they do change, and so you want to make sure you have the correct form factor. Now this particular case, it has a top to it, and a fan goes right on the top right here. And you just squeeze it slightly and it comes into 2 parts. And the Raspberry Pi sits in here like this. We put screws in to hold it down, and then we put the top back over and it will fit on top of it. The other thing we have to do is install the fan on the top, and we also have to install these heat sinks. So in this case, there are 4 heat sinks. With this, I think there were only 2 heat sinks on the Raspberry Pi 3. So make sure you have the right case and correct heat sinks for the particular Raspberry Pi that you have. Some cases do not have fans on them. I kind of recommend having a fan if possible, just because it does probably keep it a lot cooler than just the heat sinks will. So one thing we have to do is you make sure this comes with instructions, so it will tell you which heat sink goes on which chip. So they're different sizes, so this one will go on to here, this one will go on to this one, and seems to be the smallest one. That should go on there, and this should go on there. So we're going to put those all on. They just have you peel this off, and there's a special adhesive, thermal adhesive on there that goes onto that. But make sure you figure out which ones are which, and which fit on where you need it on the chips on the board. So you want to look for the instructions like that. Make sure you've got the parts, and then it's going to fit together. I would make sure that the board fit in first, and that you have all the parts first, and then figure out where the heat sinks go, and assemble it in that way. The other thing you want to check is the fan here. Something you want to compare. Make sure you have the right heat sinks for the correct chips by looking at the diagram, and the taller one of the 2 actually goes on this right here. Make sure you also put them on in an order that's going to be easier to do. I'm going to put these 2 on first, and then this one and this one, just because I think it'll give me a little more room to maneuver around as I'm doing it. You could also get a set of tweezers if you want to make it easier to fit the heat sink onto the chip if you're having difficulty getting your fingers in there. So it doesn't hurt to do kind of a dry run, basically. See if you can fit them in there. You press them on. Good. Okay, so this is going to be the next one that fits here, and this is going to fit here. That will be the last heat sink right there. It shouldn't make any difference really what direction these lines are going, as long as it kind of lines up with the chip. In this case it's square, so you can put them either way. This case it has to go this way because of the length of it, so it just has to go the length of the chip basically. But if it's a square chip, it doesn't make as much difference, because these ridges actually just put an air gap there, and it makes the heat sink more efficient. So then, now that we've got the heat sinks on, this one didn't. That one is centered a little bit better. Try to get them centered best you can. Once again, the main thing is that it's making contact with the chip, in that it's going across as much of the surface of the chip as it can, and going in the right direction. If it's rectangular, make sure it's going in the right direction. If it's square, it doesn't really make that much difference which way the ridges are are facing, like I said. And so then we're going to sit this into the bottom part. You'll see right here there are these screws in each corner, or a little place to put a screw in each corner. Here we've got the right screws here. These longer screws are going to go into this, and it needs to be oriented like that. This case came with its own little screwdriver, which is a nice bonus. It actually takes in the wrong direction because we want the leads up towards this end because we're going to plug it into these. I should have done that before I even started putting any of the screws in. So that will now go to the right spot. All right, now make sure you look at the instructions to see where these leads plug in to the particular board you have. There's a 5-volt fan. The ground is going to go to, the difficulty is we have to get this through here. I'm going to do it like this so that it's through the top of the case. It's going to make it easier. But before I do that, I need to put the screws in that hold the board down. One thing to make sure of in this, because the Raspberry Pi actually has a slot underneath it for an SD card, and there's actually a slot down here in the bottom of this case, so make sure that's lined up and everything. The nice thing about the screwdriver in this particular kit is it's magnetic, so it makes it easier to put the screw in, or the screws in. This case also came with a power supply, which is nice. Some cases do not come with a power supply. All right, so we put all 4 screws in there. You can see how the different ports line up. We've got like a little micro or mini HDMI. I guess it's micro. No, I guess it's mini HDMI, and we've got a USB-C port to power it. This is the audio port. This is the Ethernet port. We've got 4 USB ports. This is a USB 3, these two, and these two are USB 2. So, yes, we could just pop this top on there. And we, like I said, we want to make sure the ground here, the black lead, is on the 7th. First here, if that should work for this particular fan. Once again, check the instructions with the case and fan you get. If you get a case with a fan, it just snaps back together. This particular one. Some of them screw together, some of them are metal. This is just a plastic one. All right, so there we have it. We have Raspberry Pi now in the case and everything. Get some little rubber feet for this. Go ahead and put these rubber feet in here. We've got the rubber feet all in there and everything. And there it is. So that's how you put a Raspberry Pi in a case. Remember to get the correct case for the correct Raspberry Pi, depending on the model number of Raspberry Pi, and then make sure you fit it to make sure that you've got the right one. Make sure everything fits in before you screw things down, and make sure you get the heat sinks on and the fan in place and all of that. And there you have it.